Hello children, I hope everyone are safe and sound. Class 6 English Literature. In the earlier video, we have started a new lesson. The Great Train Journey by Ruskin Bond. So in this text, we have seen that a small boy, Suraj, he was having his summer holidays and he was walking beside the railway track not knowing what to do with himself. So he was just having a walk beside a railway track and he had seen a goods train that was parked that was parked beside the sidings, railway sidings. So goods train, we know how it will be. It will be closed on all sides. There won't be any windows. So Suraj wanted to check what is there inside those carriage doors. So he tried to open one after the other carriage door, and soon he was at the end of the train, and at last one door was open. So it was dark inside, and when he opened the door, just sunlight that was peeping inside. He can hardly see few crates inside. So he wanted to see. He just get into the carriage, and he wanted to open those crates, and he wanted to find out what was there inside. We have read all this in the earlier video, and we have seen that he was very curious to know what are there inside those locked things that are concealed. We have seen that he was very interested to know what is there inside. So he was trying to open those crates, and soon we have seen that one crate nails was not nailed properly. So he opened the lid and he put his hand inside and he plucked out one apple. Yes, he picked up an apple, and as he was looking at that apple, he had seen that outside the door the trees were moving one after the other slowly, and then the speed grew up, and he went out and he had seen that it was not the trees or the telegraph poles, but the train that he was in was moving away from his hometown. So he got scared at first, but after that he took the apple that he had dropped and he pulled out one crate near the doorway, and he sat on that crate, and he was having a bite of the apple. So this is what we have seen. Now we'll continue our reading. So what happened next? "Greeting, friend," said a voice from behind, and Suraj spun round guilty, his mouth full of apple. A dirty, feared face was looking out at him from behind a pile of crates. The mouth was open wide, pan-stained grin. Namaste," said Suraj apprehensively. "Who are you?" The man stepped out from behind the crates and confronted the boy. I'll have one of those too," he said, pointing to the apple. Suraj gave the man an apple and stood his ground while the carriage rocked on the rails. The man took a step forward, lost his balance, and sat down on the floor. "And where are you going, friend?" he asked. "Have you a ticket?" "No," said Suraj. "Have you?" The man pulled at his beard and mustered upon the question, but did not answer it. He took a bite from the apple and said, "No, I don't have a ticket, but I usually reserved this compartment for myself. This is the first time I've had company. Where are you going? Are you a hippie like me?" "I don't know," said Suraj. "Where does the train go?" The scrubby ticketless traveler looked concerned for a moment and said, "Where do you want to go?" So here we have seen that Not only Suraj was there inside the carriage, but there was another stranger. So from behind the crates, he came out and he greeted Suraj, and he asked and he inquired Suraj about where he was going. Does he have any ticket? Suraj said he doesn't have any ticket, and he asked the man whether the man has a ticket. He also doesn't have any ticket, and we have seen that. We have read that this man asked Suraj where he was going. So Suraj was accidentally he was not planned to go anywhere. So he said, I don't know. So he asked, where does the train go? So this man said, oh, the train wherever the train goes everywhere. The scrubby ticketless traveler looked concerned for a moment and said, where do you want to go? So he asked Suraj, where does Suraj wants to go? So I want to go everywhere, said Suraj. I want to go to England and China and Africa and Greenland. I want to go all over the world. Then you are on the right train, said the man. This train goes everywhere. First it will take you to the sea, and there you will have to get on a ship if you want to go to China. How do I get on a ship? Asked Suraj. The man, who had been fumbling about in the folds and pockets of his shabby clothes, produced a packet of beedies and a box of matches and began smoking the aromatic leaf. Can you cook? He asked. Yes, said Suraj untruthfully. Can you scrub a deck? Can you sail a ship? I can sail anything. Then you will definitely go to China, said the man. He leaned back against a crate, stuck his dirty feet upon another crate, and puffed contentedly at his beedi. Suraj finished his apple, took another from the crate, and dug his teeth into it. He took aim with the core of the middle apple and tried to hit a telegraph pole, but missed it by yards. It was not the same as throwing a cricket ball. Then, to make the apple more interesting, he began to take big bites to see if he could devour it in 3 mouthfuls. But it took him 4 bites to finish the apple. So he started on another. So here we see that Suraj, he wanted to make his journey interesting. So he took an apple, and after eating the apple, the middle part, he wanted to hit the telegraph pole, and he missed it. And he took another apple and he wanted to finish it in 3 bites. So he took big bites of the apple, but it took 4 bites for him to finish the apple. And we have seen that here Suraj, this man was asking whether Suraj can cook or he can sail a ship. Or so Suraj said, yes, I can. He said untruthfully. That means he was just saying that he can cook and he can sail anything. So this man said if he can cook and if he can sail a ship, then definitely he can go to China. Suraj had always wanted to be in a train that would take him to strange new places over hundreds and hundreds of miles. And here was a train doing just that. And he was not quite sure if it was what he really wanted. So Suraj, he always wanted to travel by a train, go to distinct places, go to which are miles far away, and he was sitting in a train, and the train is just doing that. But Suraj was not sure whether it was that what he really wanted. The train was coming to a station. The engine whistled, slowed down. The number of railway lanes increased, crossed, spread out in different direction. Before the train could come to a stop, Suraj's companion came to the door and jumped to the ground. You'd better keep out of sight if you don't want to be caught. he warned, and waving his hand, he disappeared into the jungle across the railway tracks. The train was at siding. The Suraj could not see any sign of life, but he heard voices and the sound of carriage doors being opened or closed. He suspected that the apples wouldn't stay in the compartment much longer, so he stuffed one into his pocket and climbed onto wooden rack in a corner. Presently, men's voice were heard in the doorway. Two laborers stepped into the compartment and began moving the crates towards the door, where they were taken over by others. Soon the compartment was empty. So here Suraj, he heard some people's voice, and he thought that the apples won't be there any longer. So he took one apple and he put it in his pocket and get onto a wooden rack that was in the corner. Presently men's voice were heard in the doorway. Two laborers stepped into the compartment and began moving the crates towards the door, where they were taken over by others. Soon the compartment was empty. Suraj waited until the man had gone away. Before coming down from the rack, after about 5 minutes, the train started again. It shunted up and down, then gathered speed and went rushing across the plain. Suraj felt a thrill of anticipation. Where would they be going now? He wondered what his parents would do when he failed to come home that night. They would think he had run away, or been kidnapped, or been involved in an accident. They would have the police out, and there would be search parties. Suraj would be famous, the boy who disappeared. So here we see that Suraj is thinking all sort of things. So he was thinking about his parents, what his parents would do if he failed to go back home that night. So he was thinking that his parents would think that he had run away, or he had been kidnapped, or he had met with an accident. They would go to the police, lodge a complaint, search parties would be out, and Suraj will be famous in his hometown as the boy who disappeared. The train came out of the jungle and passed fields of sugarcane and a village of mud huts. Children shouted and waved to the train. Though there was no one in it except Suraj, the guard, and the engine driver, Suraj waved back. Usually he was in a field waving. Today he was actually on the train. So earlier Suraj was in the field and waving at the train, but now Suraj is in the train and other boys are waving at him. He was beginning to enjoy the ride. The train would take him to the sea. There would be ships with funnels and ships with sails, and might even be one to take him across the ocean to some distant land. He felt a bit sorry for his mother and father. They would miss him. They would believe he had been lost forever, but one day, a fortune made, he would return home, and then nobody would care any more about school reports and what he ate and why he had came home late. Ranjit would be waiting for him at the station, and Suraj would bring him back a present, an African lion, perhaps, or a transistor radio. But he wished Ranjit was with him now. He wished the rugged hippie was still with him. An adventure was always more fun when one had company. So Suraj was thinking about going to China, getting onto a ship, and he felt sorry about his parents that they would miss him. but they would think that he had lost forever. But one day, when fortune made, he would return home, and that time nobody will care for his report cards or whether he had, at what time he came home, or whether he had ate whether he ate or not, whatever. And but he was thinking about his friend whose name is Ranjit, and he was thinking that when he come back home after a few years, Ranjit would be waiting for him at the station, and he thought of taking him a present, an African lion or a transistor radio. But he was thinking that if only Ranjit was with him, because when in an adventure, if there was a company, it would be more fun. He had finished both apples by the time the train showed sign of reaching another station. This time it seemed to be moving into the station itself, not just a siding. It passed a lot of signals and buildings and advertisement boards before showing to a halt beside a wide familiar platform. Now here we see that this train not by the siding, but it was going actually to the familiar platform, into the station. So it was familiar. So Suraj looked out of the door and caught sight of the board bearing the station's name. So he looked at the board which had that station's name. He was so astonished that he almost fell out of the compartment. He was back at his hometown after traveling 40 or 50 miles. Here he was home again. So here we see that at the end of his journey, Suraj was back to his hometown. When he saw that board, he was astonished. He fell out of the compartment, and after traveling 40 to 50 miles, he was back to his home again. He couldn't understand it. The train hadn't returned. Of that he was certain, and it hadn't been moving backward. He was certain of that too. He climbed out of the compartment and looked up and down the platform. Yes, the engine had changed ends. It was only a local apple train. So here we see that the train did not, what do you say? It did not traveled backward, but still it came to the same station where Suraj got into that carriage. So that means the train might have taken a circular motion. Suraj glowered angrily at everyone on the platform. It was as though the rest of the world had played a trick on him. So Suraj was feeling very sad, and he was angry that he came back home. He was thinking all sort of things, that he would be going all over the world, but all his thoughts were, all his feelings were shattered now. So he was looking at everyone on the platform very angrily, and he was thinking that all the rest of the world had played a trick on him. He made his way to the waiting room and slipped into the street through the back door. He did not want a ticket collector asking him awkward questions. It had been a free ride, and with that he comforted himself. Shrugging his shoulders, Suraj sauntered down the road to the bazaar. Someday he thought he'd take a train and really go somewhere, and he'd buy a ticket just to make sure of getting there. So Suraj was thinking that as he was walking down the road into the bazaar, he was thinking that someday he would take a train and really go somewhere, and him to make sure that to make sure of getting there, he would buy a ticket. I'm going everywhere, he said fiercely. I'm going everywhere, and no one can stop me. So this is what Suraj was thinking, that I'm going everywhere. Someday when he grew up, he would buy a ticket, he get into a train and make sure that he would get to those distinct places. And he was saying that angrily, I want to go. I'm going everywhere. I'm going everywhere. So this is a short story written by Ruskin Bond, and we see that it's very funny. We can think how Suraj might be feeling when he came back home after traveling 40 to 50 kilometers. He came back home, yes. And even the stranger also, he didn't wanted Suraj to what do you say, when Suraj was excitingly saying that he wanted to go everywhere, even the stranger also did not tell him that train would come back to his hometown again. So Suraj had at least he was comforted himself by thinking that he had a free raid in the train. At least some adventure he had, traveling 40 to 50 kilometers and 40 to 50 miles, and he had seen the how it would be like traveling by a train or by a goods train, yes. And children, now you read this text once again and understand the lesson. It is very funny and it is very thrilling also, this story. Thank you, children.